At the end of the day, for people of African descent who are looking for a reprieve from systemic racism and microaggressions, you really have to think, is it a life or death issue, or is it an inconvenience issue? Welcome to BLAXIT to Africa. I'm Tadre Delora Moignet, a California native living my best life in Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I hope that you are informed, entertained, and inspired to BLAXIT to Africa. Hey, beautiful people. Y'all know I got my tea, right? You know TT got her tea. I got my pineapple mango fruit infusion tea with raw honey, cinnamon bark, and I added some fresh pineapple. That's nice. I'm gonna need this tea because this episode right here really just had me questioning all my life's choices. Doing this research, baby, why African Americans are leaving Africa. And I was so prepared to just come on here and talk my talk. And then as I dug deeper and deeper into the research, I said, oh, okay. I get it. But hear me out. Top 3 reasons why African Americans are leaving Africa. Money, that's number 1. Infrastructure, number 2. 3, adventurous spirits. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. Hang on. So where did I derive this research? I derived it from my personal experiences, what I've seen vicariously through people that I know personally, and YouTube videos. And of course, I had to go to my homegirl ChatGPT. And what I asked ChatGPT to do was put together a table of various African countries versus international cities and measure them based on cost of living and quality of life. And I was shocked. I mean, like, really, really shocked. So hold on to your horses for that one. Let's talk first about the money piece. If you hear some noise in the background, it's early in the morning, Friday in Nairobi. Folks is getting ready to go out of town and getting ready to go to work. So don't mind that. What I realized through my research is that major cities in Africa are more expensive than a lot of major cities throughout the world. So we're dealing with a populace that has to make their money stretch. They're living off of their savings, their retirement, their 401k, pensions. They're living on a fixed income. And so coming to Africa and balling out because the dollar is so strong and the CD is so weak in comparison, or the Kenyan shilling is so weak in comparison, folks is finding out real quick, oh, hold on, I gotta scale back, or I gotta go someplace where the cost of living is even lower. The other thing that came up a lot in the YouTube videos that I watched of African expats of African descent, whether they be from Europe or they be from the Americas, is the way folks feel entitled to your money. This is a frustration for me. One of my girlfriends used to complain all the time about how grown-ass men who was old enough to be her daddy would ask her for money here in Kenya. And that's a fact. And then get an attitude when you don't comply. One of my guards where I stay, I don't even know him by first name. I was just raised to speak to the people that you see every day. So I speak to the gardeners. I speak to the guards. I speak to the kids. I speak to my neighbors. I don't know. Maybe this guy took this as like, oh, okay, she has an affinity for me. No, I'm just being polite. This man literally rocked up to my door, rang the doorbell, and proceeded to ask me for 5,000 shillings, boo. That's about $40 or $50. You make about $1 a day. How you finna pay that back? Talk about I'll give it back to you on such and such day. I'm looking at him through the gates of my door and I said, I ain't got it. And I literally did not have it. This was happening during the protest and I was unable to access my money. And even if I could, I wasn't going to give him that much. I might have gave him a little bit, but 5,000, next thing you know, transferred. He knew where he was going. He knew he wasn't going to give me that money back. But let me tell you, when I did not comply, the way that man did not have eyes for me, he couldn't even look at me. He wouldn't even greet me. And let's not talk about Christmas. Let's not talk about Christmas. It's coming up. It's coming up. And one of the things that happens in Kenya, folks be like, oh, madam, where is Christmas? Where is Christmas? It's not part of my culture, so I don't know what y'all talk about. Then it dawned on me, oh, you want some money. So I literally had to tell these guards at my gym, I said, y'all got 2 jobs, and y'all can't even do them right. Your job is to greet me when I come in the door, and your job is to open the door. They don't even do that. They scowl at me when I get to the door. They see me walking towards the door. I need them to open it because it's locked. They wait till I get up on the door, have to stand there and look back for them to come over and begrudgingly open the door. This is a very nice building where my gym is located. So I'm telling them this and they're like, oh, no, it wasn't us. It must have been the night guards. I don't come to the gym at night. It's you. And if you knew you was going to ask me for some money for Christmas, you should have been prepping me. You should have been getting me ready. You understand what I'm saying? If you knew you was going to hit me up for some dough, you should have been getting me ready. Listen, this can take me there. So one of the things that came up, even when I was watching African YouTubers, they was talking about this begging spirit. I think this Ugandan sister was like, I don't know where this begging spirit comes from. And apparently it doesn't exist in the same ways in other parts of the world. And so it's an annoyance. And people just had it up to here. What I will say about the money piece is what I've heard from some people is like, listen, I'm going to go back to my passport country, work, get my money up, then I'm going to come back, buy land, buy a house, that sort of thing. I've heard that a lot. I have yet to see that happen, but that is the narrative. The other thing that came up in the YouTube videos that I watched was there's a citizen price and there's a foreigner price. And this isn't just in Kenya. This is in many parts of Africa. I have to say it does bother me. When I go to the Arboretum, I think it's like something like 65 shillings if you're a citizen and 600 shillings if you are a foreign national to enter the Arboretum. There's the same differential if you're going to national parks, if you're going to museums, etc. So essentially what happens is you have foreign nationals that are paying for the upkeep, the maintenance, and the salaries of these venues, and also the ability for citizens to enter this space. I don't think that's right. That's not right. That's really problematic. If you come to the U.S. and you go to any amusement park, Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland, everybody's going to pay a grip to get in. There is no American price and foreign national price. When you go to the beaches and the national parks, everybody is going to pay the same amount. And when I go over here to Karua Forest, there is a citizen price and there is a foreign national price, and then there's a resident price. Okay, the only difference that you'll find in pricing in the US might be lower prices for citizens and lower prices for children. That's it. Y'all know I got my notes right here, so don't mind me. Infrastructure. everybody has seen, if you're not from the US, you've seen American movies. I don't need to go into detail about that. Infrastructure is top tier, okay? There are countries that surpass us. I've heard Asian countries that surpass us in terms of infrastructure. But generally across the board, you know, in the US, infrastructure is top tier. It's not something you think about until you leave the US and you go to developing nations and you realize, oh, okay, they don't have sidewalks. Okay, the roads are not what they could be, despite these countries taking gobs of money for infrastructure development. I never gave a thought to gas lines. The gas lines are underground. I never gave a thought to where my gas was coming from. Here in Kenya, Uganda, basically every place I've lived, in Africa, Namibia, Rwanda, Tanzania, you have people that deliver gas cylinders to your house. They have to hook it up to your stove. It will behoove you to learn how to do it yourself. One of my girlfriends is Ugandan, very paranoid about this situation. Every time you get done using the stove, she has you disconnect the gas line. You know, so it's that type of thing. But really, infrastructure, what I mean in this particular context is that Americans are accustomed to systems working, point blank, period. Perhaps a little too well, okay? So when you consider the school to prison pipeline, that system works too well. However, it trickles down to everything else, right? Like, I have a Kenyan girlfriend who had to fly to the US to lay her father to rest. He had died over there. And she was telling me how everything just worked so well in terms of garnering the legal paperwork required to gain access to his properties, his financial accounts, to get the burial records, etc. Came back to Kenya years later. She had to lay her mama to rest. This was last year. I was at the funeral. I spoke to her maybe a month and a half ago, and she said, Tadre, I'm still waiting on the paperwork to gain access to her mother's financial accounts. Her mother had many projects, many businesses. So what this means is that her and her siblings are keeping these businesses afloat and paying her mama's staff, right? Because other people got to eat. Because she has yet to receive the right documentation to gain access to her mama's accounts over a year later. And she's jumped through all the hoops above ground and below ground, if you get what I mean. And this is why my Ugandan sister was like, why are y'all here? We don't understand why y'all come here. And to try to explain, like, oh, the feeling of being in a place where you're the majority, where you're not being othered, the freedom, the weight that's off your shoulders, and being in your motherland. You don't get it until you leave and you have certain experiences and you come back. The Wi-Fi speeds, inconsistent service for people who are working remotely, this is paramount. This is so important. I remember getting my little cottage in Zanzibar, and I could not work. I fancied myself a YouTube influencer, a travel influencer. I was gonna be, filming everything and getting paid for my content. Honey, I had so much trouble just accessing the YouTube app. I would look at the signal. It would just say E. I'm like, what the hell is E? E is like some form of 2G. It would say E or 2G. So I went to my landlord and I said, I'm gonna have to leave for this very reason. And I had already gone in Stone Town and talked to the cell phone or the fiber network, Wi-Fi provider, to no avail. I don't know what that man did. I don't know who he talked to, but he is, a big fish in a small pond in Zanzibar. He talked to somebody and I was able to get, I want to say 3G, sometimes 4G, which at least let me upload. But when I was uploading even short videos, I would have to upload it overnight. And then sometimes I would wake up in the morning and the network had gone out and I would have to start over again. Fortunately, with Kenya anticipating this new digital nomad visa, Kenya is shoring up its fiber optic networks. Electricity, water, that can be an issue. Not for me. I am on the president's grid. I live near the State House, so I do not have these issues. The key to having consistent electricity in Africa is getting you some solar panels and getting you, what is it called? A generator, or that other thing that's similar to a generator. The words is escaping me right now. The roads, you know, depending on what you want in life, what you're used to, what stage you are at in life. Roads may not be important to you. I can tell you straight up, Kampala, love the city. However, once you go off the main roads in Kampala, generally speaking, you're going to be on a dirt road. And then lastly, corruption. Corruption is something that I've seen people talk about in many parts of Africa. Just how you got to pay to play. You got to pay to play. I remember being a student at the University of Ghana and having people send me mail and not understanding that I had to pay to play. And going to the post office and the little man like speaking in code, and it was a code that I did not understand. And I'm just like standing to the side and waiting, and he's serving other people, and I'm not understanding why this man is not giving me my mail until, oh, he wants a little something. He wants me to dash him a little something. You can fight this. You can push back. It's just going to be a longer time in acquiring that service or that good. And it's going to be a battle of wills. Who is going to win in this scenario? Is it going to be you, or is it going to be that service provider? It's up to you. One of my clients came to, I won't say the country, because I like to keep my money where I can see it. But what I will say is one of my clients moved to an African nation. She has cats. She secured all of the paperwork required for her to bring her pets in country. When she arrived at the airport, they held her up, talking about she needed to pay more money, she didn't have the right paperwork, etc. She was resolute. She was not coming up offering no more money. She sat there. I think she said she sat there for a couple of hours. She broke down and cried. That was a tactic she used. Eventually, they just let her go. Hey. Lastly, adventurous spirits. So we're dealing with a contingent who have left everything behind. Everything they know. Their loved ones, their creature comforts, their careers in some cases, to come to a place that they know very little about. That's a very specific personality type. They have adventurous spirits. And so if something's not working, they're going to see what to do someplace else. And one thing that I've heard quite a bit is, if God had meant for us to stay in one place our whole lives, he would have given us roots and not me. Now, there's some other things that came up from these YouTube videos. Cultural differences. I think the main one is that there are a lot of people, a lot of African Americans that are searching for connection. They're searching for acknowledgement. They're searching for a healing. Don't come here for that. Do that work on your own, please. And if you decide to come here for some sort of connection, I would think that the best way to do that is to suss that out through ancestral religious practices or ancestral spiritual practices. For example, Ifa in West Africa. That will be a way that you can get that healing that you desire. But meeting people on the streets, establishing friendships with the average African and thinking that you are going to get that healing, that ache, that's not going to happen. And I will say to my fellow Africans, you will never understand how it feels if you've never had that experience of being ripped away from your motherland, that desire to go back. Maybe the closest you might experience is being forced into exile for political reasons, religious reasons, sexual orientation reasons. But I will say that when I landed in Ghana, the way I felt something inside of me just exhale and feel rooted and at home. It's inexplicable, and yet it happens. The other reason folks is leaving for love. Like, folks is coming here looking for a love connection. Folks is convinced that they gonna find their spouse in Africa. I'm about to find my king, I'm gonna find my queen in Africa. Or they're moving here with a partner. And then that relationship dissolve, and then they go back home or someplace else. Then there is the way that some African Americans are so nostalgic about Africa. We tend to romanticize it. We have unrealistic expectations. And then there are some YouTubers, influencers, what have you, that are selling folks a pipe dream. I do my best to be authentic and to show a balanced point of view, or really what it is. And people who are coming here with all of that nostalgia, they become disillusioned very quickly and they move on to what they would consider to be greener pastures. What I have to say about this is that two people can be in the same space and the same time and have two different experiences. It's nice to listen to people like myself and form your opinions that way. However, it's even better if you come yourself first. Test it out first. See what it's like on the ground first, through your own experiences, through your own gendered lens, through your own sexual orientation lens, your own packaging, because we all come in different packaging. And based on that packaging is how people will receive and regard us. The first time I went to Brazil, I said, I'm moving here. I gave my then partner a 5-year timeline. I said, in 5 years, we're going to move to Brazil. He was with it. The second time we went, I had a business opportunity, and I said, I am going to view this country from the perspective of living here. And I was asking the locals the right questions. And I was viewing it through a different lens than as a tourist. And we concluded Brazil was not for us, because the anti-blackness, the violence against black bodies in Brazil is even more violence than what we experience in the U.S. Baby, moving right along, I want to keep this short and sweet. So, I went to my good friend, Miss ChatGPT, and I said, I want to compare popular Black expat African cities against other popular expat cities throughout the world. And I want to compare them based on cost of living, because remember, the reason why some African Americans are leaving Africa, the primary reason being money and also quality of life. Now, my homegirl, one of my closest friends here in Kenya, she's African American from the East Coast, and she lived right down the street from me. Her family, a few months ago, they moved to Thailand. And one of the things that she said to me was, people in Nairobi are cold. I can see that. And she is very much extroverted. But that was one of the reasons. It not only is it cold in temperature occasionally, there can be a coldness amongst people. And before Kenyans come for me, please know that I've experienced colder. Parisians, hey, okay. Uh, Germans in Frankfurt, oh, baby. So there was that. There was also the struggle to find work. They had their businesses. However, they were living primarily off of their savings, and it was a strain. They moved to Thailand. Both of them get jobs within a very, very short period of time. And that's the other thing about living in Asia, is that they are looking for English teachers. Both of them are teaching now and getting paid well. So let's get into this table. All right, y'all? Hold on to your hats, because this right here, just like, okay, maybe I just need to go for a walk and think about this. This particular table is specifically for African Americans, because I had ChatGPT do a general one, and I had ChatGPT form a table specifically for African American experience. Nairobi versus Bangkok. In both cost of living and quality of life, Bangkok wins. Why? Lower rent and transportation costs. Why? Bangkok offers more amenities and easier access to services. Lord. Dar es Salaam versus Chiang Mai. Chiang Mai is another popular destination for expats in general. There's a lot of people in Dar, a lot of people in Arusha. Chiang Mai wins in both categories. Why? More affordable rent, utilities, and dining. You know Asia got the eats now. Chiang Mai offers better walkability and healthcare. Many Americans, like myself, we love a good walk, honey. After lunch, after dinner, to clear your head, you know, in between projects if you're working from home. I even love a nice walking meeting, okay? Then I said, all right. Let's compare Nairobi versus Chiang Mai, all right? Chiang Mai wins in both categories. Baby, why? Chiang Mai, cheaper housing and food. Chiang Mai's expat networks create a stronger sense of belonging. I said, what? So you mean to tell me, now this is according to artificial intelligence, y'all. Artificial intelligence don't have no heart. It's scouring the internet to bring me these results, okay? So I said, you mean to tell me that the expat network in Chiang Mai is so strong that it outweighs the feeling you get from being in the majority on the continent and not being othered? Y'all, in high school, we were the only Black family in my entire city. I wasn't in a town. I wasn't in a village. I was in Burbank, California. We were the only Black family in my whole city. Hyper visible. Mind you, we had an Ethiopian family in my city, my good friends, okay? They did not consider themselves to be Black. And you know, sometimes Ethiopians don't even consider themselves to be African, but that's a whole nother story. And we had two interracial families where there were some identity issues there. We'll just leave that. Hey, but like self-identifying Black on both sides, hey. And I also have to say that y'all know I do fashion tours in Nairobi. And when I bring people to my fashion spots, okay, when I take people out to eat, if they want bridge or luxury, they're shocked. They are shocked. I took one of my guests who's from Europe but lives in Colombia. I took one of my guests to a pop-up over off of like Peponi Ridge. And she saw that the bag she wanted came out to 300 USD. We sat down to eat. She looked at them prices over off Peponi. For those who don't know, higher end area. She was like, Nairobi's a lot more expensive than I thought. You should come to Colombia. That bag, I can get that for less than $100 in Colombia. We have such great leather. I had a sister come from the States, originally from one of the Francophone West African countries. She wanted clothes, get some clothes made. Honey, I took her to one of my spots. I won't say the name. They're not like super expensive, but they're not West African cheap. And the way she was just grabbing stuff, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this, I like this. Okay. And when they told her what the total was, oh, she went from having 8 pieces to getting 2 pieces. We got back in the car. She was visibly disturbed and disappointed. And me as the host, like, I'm trying to like mitigate that. And she was just like, no. And it was Cameroon is where she was from. She was like, in Cameroon, like, it wouldn't cost that much. Now, mind you, there's quality versus quantity. But even still, she was just like, ugh. Then I had to go back and apologize to the vendor. I had to smooth things out with her. Nairobi is no joke now. Nairobians know this. So then I said, let's compare Accra versus Medellin. Both are very popular expat destinations. Medellin wins in cost of living. Okay, my Colombian guest told me this. Now, Accra, I'm saying it wrong, Accra, wins in quality of life for African Americans. ChatGPT says, Accra fosters emotional healing and deep ancestral connection. That's a fact. But then I also feel like you also have to factor in the noise pollution from all of the generators. You also have to factor in the terrible traffic. They have terrible traffic patterns in Accra. Johannesburg versus Bogota. Okay, Bogota wins in cost of living, and also Johannesburg wins in quality of life. ChatGPT says Johannesburg provides a sense of freedom in majority Black spaces. I should have said earlier that ChatGPT is pulling information from Numbeo and Expatistan. Okay, and the other thing about quality of life, you have to look at crime. Unfortunately, Johannesburg has more violent crime compared to Bogota, Colombia. My Lord. I said, okay, now let's look at Cape Town versus Porto Lisbon. Porto wins in terms of cost of living is lower. And you know, folks love a Cape Town. The way African Americans are willing to sacrifice being in a Black majority to live in Cape Town because of the infrastructure and how the systems work. And also, let me go back to Joburg versus Bogota, because I've spent a little bit of time in Joburg as a tourist and as someone who used to work there. The load shedding that is happening in Johannesburg, that's got to be a quality of life impact, because the way you have an app that tells you when the power will be on and when it will be off. I literally had a layover in Joburg. I wanted to do some shopping. This was last year when I went to Maputo, Mozambique. Wanted to do some shopping. Booked an Airbnb close to one of their major malls. Put my stuff down. Got ready to head out to the mall. And my host was like, okay, the power's getting ready to go out. Let us show you how we got this rigged for you via solar. I said, oh, no, I'm getting ready to go to the mall. They said, oh, well, the power's going out. I said, well, but surely the street lights will be on. No. They looked at me like I was dumb. Like, are you dumb? Did you not hear us? I knew they had this load shedding situation, but I said, I know the street lights and the stop lights will be on. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And the Uber driver on the way there, he told me, he said, good luck accessing GPS. Now, when you're new to a place, you definitely need some GPS. So my little shopping plan was thwarted. I stayed in the house with the dim light that they had rigged up. Back to Cape Town versus Porto. So Porto wins in overall affordability, and Cape Town wins in terms of connecting African American with heritage and culture. Finally, last but not least, Lagos versus Mexico City. I even have a video where I interviewed a sister from Ohio who moved to Mexico City. Absolutely loves it. I'll link it for you. Mexico City wins in affordability. Why? Because Lagos living expenses are higher due to import reliance. Lagos wins because Lagos offers ancestral connection and a shared cultural identity. So in terms of quality of life, ChatGPT is saying that Lagos wins due to that ancestral connection. Y'all know I did an episode about how Lagos or Nigeria helped me appreciate Kenya. I will link that. Another sip of tea. Being in Nigeria's major cities is a doozy. It's a doozy. Perhaps living in the smaller towns is better. I follow a few people on Insta and they make life outside of the major cities just look magical. But again, infrastructure, electricity is major. Fuel, access to fuel in Nigeria, even though it's an oil-rich country, the noise pollution, the air pollution in the major cities, that's a quality of life factor. So at the end of the day, for people of African descent who are looking for a reprieve from systemic racism and microaggressions, you really have to think, is it a life or death issue or is it an inconvenience issue? That's really what you're looking at here. Life or death, inconvenience. I can tell you straight up, me and my family almost died by police in the US. All of us professionals, all of us college educated, all of us law-abiding citizens, it was a case of mistaken identity. And me, my daddy, and my half-sister wound up face down on the streets in Hollywood, hands behind our backs over some mistaken identity BS. That's a life and death situation. Inconvenience. Folks expecting money when they shouldn't. Power outages, inconvenience. So to sum it all up, where will you go to find your peace? Thank you for joining me on this episode of BLAXIT to Africa. If you like what you heard, please share, subscribe, and leave a comment. May you thrive. May you be inspired. May you move with love